It's been a few years since I have enjoyed the Nike Pegasus series. And now, I think it's time that we parted ways. It's not the Pegasus that's the problem, it's me. Yo, what's going on everybody? My name is Kofuzi and I'm a non-elite runner who reviews shoes here on YouTube. And today I'm gonna talk to you guys about the Nike Pegasus 40. But before I do want to go over some disclosures. This is a pair of shoes that I bought myself. No one sent them to me and no one's paying me to make this video. And no one's gonna get a chance to preview any of my footage or my thoughts before you guys get a chance to see this video on YouTube. So with that disclosure out of the way, let's talk about the Nike Pegasus 40. First, let's go over some specs. And I gotta tell you, I don't really have a lot because Nike does not give a lot of information when it comes to the specs on their shoes, but I'll tell you what I know. This is a Nike by You edition, meaning that I customized it. It costs quite a bit more extra to do this, but you get to pick your upper, you get to pick your swoosh colors, your laces, all sorts of other stuff. You can customize it by putting little messages on the back of the heel. And this is what I came up with this year. I don't really love the design. I mean, I think it's okay, but in terms of rating how I did, I think I like kind of what I've been doing the last couple years. I think I was trying to break out of the mold with the 40 and I think I need to stick with black uppers when it comes to making my own Nike Pegasus. As far as the midsole goes on this shoe, you're looking at an all react midsole. It's got a pretty tall stack height, and typically the Nike Pegasus has a 10mm drop, and that's what it feels like, at least to me, that we've got here in this year as well. In addition to the react midsole foam that's in this shoe, there's two Zoom air pockets. There's one in the forefoot and in the rear of the shoe as well. For the outsole, I picked a different kind of outsole than what comes on the stock version. I picked that waffle outsole. I'm a big fan of the waffle outsole. It's a little bit more on the retro side. And to carry some of that retro styling through, I went with the retro style of Nike badging on the top of the tongue. I went with the speed laces again because I just like having the speed laces when I use the Pegasus. I think it's a little bit different. It doesn't really change the performance characteristics of the shoe that much. It's just kind of a stylistic preference that I enjoy. And then the rest of this upper, we have a new material that I find to be much more comfortable, roomy, and breathable than what I've seen in a Pegasus pretty much, I think, ever. The heel flare on the back of the shoe continues to get shaved further and further down. It's almost as if there's no heel flare on this shoe at all anymore. And the amount of padding that we have here is kind of in the moderate to light amount of padding that I like to see for a daily trainer. Now, in addition to not giving us stack height or drop information, Nike also isn't providing weights. I weighed this on my own personal scale at a size 9 with all the customizations that I've put into it. My shoe came in at 9.9 ounces and 282 grams. All right, now that we talked about some specs, or I guess we tried to talk about some of the specs, let's talk about what it was like to actually run in the shoe. And I gotta tell you, it's probably the best Pegasus that I've run in the past couple of years. I personally think that the Pegasus seems to have peaked at version 36, but that might just be me and my nostalgia talking. The current version of the Pegasus seems to be a little softer and a lot more runnable than the last couple of versions have been. I will say though that I do think that React foam has been softer in other shoes before, and I think that it could still be a little bit softer in the Pegasus 40, but it's a lot better than the 38 and a lot better than the 39. While I do recognize that the midsole feels different and feels softer, I'm not sure that I necessarily feel the Zoom air pockets. That used to be like a very prominent thing that you would feel, especially in a brand new pair of Nike Pegasus, is a little bulge in the shoe where the Zoom air pockets were. I haven't really felt that very much since maybe 37. Since then, I feel like they've tuned the Zoom air pocket to be less kind of noticeable and prominent. The problem with that being they're less noticeable and prominent. As far as the upper material goes, I've already mentioned that it's roomier and it's more comfortable. I'm personally a really big fan of knit materials, and this is kind of like a mix between like a traditional upper and a knit upper, and I feel like it strikes a really good balance between that stretchy comfort that a knit material might bring, but it also allows for a little bit more structure to be placed around the shoe for those people that want to be locked in just a little bit more snugly into their daily training shoes. Now, I took this this shoe out for what I think are its intended use cases, for some easy runs. I had a 2-hour run to kind of do some longer run testing, and then I had some easy runs with strides thrown in there to test the shoe out at some shorter distances and at a variety of paces. I feel like at strides and at faster paces, the shoe does really nice. I'm not sure I'd want to do a full-blown workout in these, but if you've got a regular day, an easy run, and maybe you have some hill sprints, or maybe you have a couple of strides that you have to do towards the end of the run, I feel like the Pegasus is going to be able to live up to that task. The only thing that I didn't love about this shoe is that I didn't want to spend a really long time in it. My first run was a 2-hour run right out of the box, and I felt like it went fine for the first kind of 45 minutes to an hour. I started to develop a hot spot in the right foot, and that then turned into full out pain. After about an hour and 15 minutes, I had to take a little bit of a walk break before I could finish out the rest of the run. And then the shoe ended up kind of bruising me. So the next couple of days, even though I switched to other shoes, I still kind of felt the lingering effect. So this is a shoe that kind of gave me a lot of foot trouble. I gave it a break for a little while to like let my right foot heal from what happened to it the first time I ran in the shoe. And then even in subsequent runs in the shoe, I made sure that those were a little bit shorter of a run, less than an hour. And then that seemed to help the situation. But I could kind of tell at 30 to 45 minutes in each of those runs that, you know what, if I keep running in the shoe, that pain is going to start to develop again. So there's just something about this shoe that's going on that I didn't really like. And I think overall, if I were to continue running a lot more miles in the shoe, I would probably save the shoe only for days where I'm going to be running probably about an hour or less. I think for a lot of people that are picking up the Pegasus that are either new to running or are returning to running after a really long break, I don't think that's going to be a problem for you guys. But for those of you who are putting in those marathon miles, I'm not sure that this is a shoe that I would necessarily recommend. So I think now I've been reviewing the Pegasus in a variety of different iterations for over 8 years now, and I think this is probably going to be one of the last years that I pick up the Pegasus, unless they do something substantial to change it. And I don't think that they need to do anything substantial to change it. It's not the Pegasus that's the problem, it's definitely me. What I want out of a daily trainer has definitely changed. I've been saying for the past several years now that the Vomero in the lineup for Nike is the best Pegasus, but I think now really what's been going on is that I've just gotten older, I've aged up, and now I'm just a Vomero guy, and that's where we are. And I'm okay with that because that's a shoe that really suits me well, and I've really been enjoying what they've done with the Vomero. And I think that as far as the Pegasus goes, I think it continues to be a great daily trainer for those runners who are new to running or coming back to running after a long hiatus, or for those younger runners who are very experienced, like high school and middle school runners in their track or cross country seasons. I definitely don't fall into any of those categories anymore, and that's not the Pegasus's fault. It's mine. Now let's say you do love the Pegasus, so you want some other shoes that you might be able to pair it with. I feel like I can give you a lot of options outside the swoosh, but I feel like you're probably gonna want swoosh options if you're loving the Pegasus. And so I'll give you some really basic ones. For your longer days, go with the Nike Invincible. And for your race day, probably you're gonna wanna pick up the Vaporfly. This is the Vaporfly 2. They're on Vaporfly 3 now. Those are gonna be some pretty solid options for you, and you'll probably be pretty happy. Let's talk about the buying guide for the shoe. The Nike Pegasus comes now in at $130, which sounds like a lot of money, but I feel like that is the standard price for daily training running shoes these days. If you're gonna go with the Nike Buy You option and design your own, that's gonna add another $30 onto it, and it'll take you about a month from the time that you maybe have too many beers after dinner and start putting together a design and the time that the shoes actually arrive at your house. Let's talk about some of the competition though and see where that $130 or that $160 stacks up in terms of pricing. I feel like the shoe that stands out to me the most as a competitor to the Nike Pegasus 40 is going to be from Adidas, and that's the Adizero SL. This is a shoe that I've been recommending or referencing all year long. I'm really surprised with how much I've been enjoying this shoe. It's got Light Strike as their EVA based foam as the main carrier in this shoe, and then it carries a little puck of Light Strike Pro, which is Adidas's racing foam up in the forefoot. This shoe retails for $120, so it's a little bit cheaper than the Pegasus, but as of the filming of this video, Adidas has this shoe on sale for an incredibly low $66. And I feel like at half the price of the Pegasus, I would pick the Adizero SL over the Pegasus 40 any day, especially if you've got that younger runner that you're shopping for and they are not exactly sure if they're going to be super into track or cross country. this is a nice way to let them get into the sport with a shoe that gives them a fighting chance of actually enjoying the sport at a price that is not too much of a risk. The other shoe that I would recommend if you're looking at the Pegasus 40 to compare is going to be from Reebok, and I never thought I'd say that, but it's the Reebok Floatrite Energy 5. I feel like they look a lot like the 4 and the 3 that came before, but the 5 is definitely a big upgrade. I love the changes that they made to the midsole in the Floatrite Energy 5, and this shoe retails at $110, so $20 cheaper than the Pegasus 40, and it's still a relatively new shoe, so you're not gonna really see it on sale, especially since it already comes pretty aggressively priced. Eventually the shoe will get reduced a little bit, which can make the value even higher, especially relative to the Pegasus 40. So those are my thoughts on the Pegasus and some of its competition and some of its compliments. Let me know in the comments if you have any other questions, or better yet, stop by the live stream that I do Monday through Friday right here on YouTube over on the Kofuzi Run Club channel, and I'd love to see you guys over there in the chat. That's all I have for today, everybody. Thanks so much for making it all the way to the end of the video. Hopefully you guys are staying safe out there on your runs, and I'll see you in the next one.
Yo, what's going on?